Welcome to part 2 of the Boss Battle Show's look at the legacy of Nintendo. Today we'll be taking a look at their more modern efforts and what the future holds for the gigantic Japanese company. Coming off of the Nintendo 64, Nintendo needed to innovate to keep up with PlayStation in the disc-based era. And in November of 2001, Nintendo launched the GameCube, their first disc-based system, to generally positive reviews. But things might not have been as sweet as they had hoped for.
So PlayStation was making huge waves, and Nintendo had to match with that. So in 2001, they came out with their first disc-based system.
They didn't innovate this time; they followed. In kind of a weird direction.
They shrank.
They did, and we don't want full-size discs. Those are silly. I want small, easy-to-lose ones.
Yep.
Yeah.
The discs were super tiny. The system was a cube.
It was a cube,
and
as its name says.
You know, arguably it could have gone either way. I enjoyed the GameCube. I had it. You know, a lot of the titles on there were super enjoyable. Super Mario Sunshine, of course. You know, any Zelda title that's ever come out has been a perfect 10 on my list. But you know, there wasn't a whole lot of perfect first-party titles for it. Then I think a lot of gamers took notice of that.
Right, and their own success was actually, I think, their biggest competitor to this. It wasn't the PlayStation. It was playing a game like Mario Sunshine and comparing it to the gift that was Mario 64. It was holding the weird GameCube controller for the first time compared to holding the 64 controller. That was their direct competition themselves, not the current market. And people didn't enjoy a lot of the things in comparison to what we'd seen from them in the past. So they set the bar high, and then they came in underneath it.
That's true.
Yeah.
And then they might have went a little even further underneath the bar with the Nintendo Wii.
When the Wii finally dropped in winter of 2006, Nintendo could not keep up with demand. Always one to take risks in their controller design, the Nintendo's Wiimote was the biggest departure yet, and people loved it. Half controller, half magic wand, the possibilities for gaming with that controller seemed limitless. But unfortunately, due to the systems like the Xbox 360 and Sony's PlayStation 3, the gimmick of the Wii faded fast.
So I would say that Nintendo fell hard on their faces with the GameCube, but they picked themselves up hard and ran right for the races with the Nintendo Wii that came out in 2006. You couldn't keep that motherfucker on the shelf.
And sometimes that's what happens with a gimmick. Is it explodes incredibly quick and it fades out just as fast.
Where were you on that Wii, or on the Wiimote?
I was just like everybody else. I was like, this is super cool for about 15 minutes.
Yep.
And then I was like, I want to sit on my couch and point stuff.
Yep. The Wiimote is a very interesting, innovative controller that, you know, you first get it in your first couple days of playing the system, you're like, this is changing gaming.
Yeah.
And then after a while...
And in some ways it did, because it was the first motion-based, peripheral that we had in our hands. So they did create something new there. Unfortunately, it was tied into games that were really poorly designed.
That's most certainly true.
Yeah.
Of course, they had their first-party titles that did quite well. But, you know, it was almost...
Like Wii Sports.
Wii Sports was sweet, dude.
Yeah. Wii Sports was the highlight of that system, and it was also the top-selling game.
Yeah.
Because it came with the system.
Because it came with it. Yep.
Yeah.
The Wii had a solid 6 years.
Yeah.
And then I would say probably about 3 years into it, halfway through its cycle, people just kind of lost interest, you know.
Yeah.
The Xbox 360 had come out, the PS3 had come out, and now by this point, Nintendo was behind the curve.
In terms of tech standards, you couldn't compare the two. I mean, it looked like 10 years into the future against 10 years into the past.
Yep.
The games were not up to snuff, and that is always going to kill a system.
Yep. And so gamers were eager for Nintendo to jump into what would then be the next gen. You know, they needed to compete with the Xbox 360 and the PS3, and they needed to do it now. So
there's a lot of pressure on them to do that, despite the fact that financially they're a very stable company. From the media and from the fans, they were this close to just falling away.
Yep. And so at E3 2012, fans eagerly awaited the announcement of Nintendo's next system. They came out on stage and announced the Wii U. Wah, wah.
Everyone waited with bated breath at E3 of 2012 to see what Nintendo was going to bring out post-Wii. By this point, they were technologically well behind the curve of other systems. Microsoft and Sony were well indeed the leaders of the industry, and Nintendo needed to bring out their big guns. And then, finally, with the announcement of the Wii U, fans were just left disappointed and confused. With only a handful of great first-party games and virtually no third-party support from other developers, the Wii U has time and time again stumbled over itself. And now, here we are in 2016, where Nintendo is on the cusp of revealing what their next system is going to be, and this one has to count.
So now that we've arrived at the present, we get to start talking about the future, because the NX is what they're describing their next system will be. And that could be a code name. We don't know if that's the official name.
And most likely would. They've always been running with code names.
Right.
With, you know, the Ultra 64 and other things.
Other code names.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. So when this comes out, you know, until its projected release, which looks like the first portion will be in November of 2016, we have the ability to speculate.
Yep.
We can dream. What do we think is going to possibly be in it? Yeah. And there's been maybe even some potential leaks that we're not 100% sure on yet.
It's all, right now it's all speculative.
Right. One, of course, the first ones is it will be cross-platform in many different ways.
Yeah. And that's, you know, it's hard to say what that will mean, but what we hope it means is with our consoles that we already own, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and we've said it before, numerous videos and conversations just privately, we would kill to be able to play Nintendo games on our consoles of preference, you know.
Right, and we were just having a dream moment talking about actually receiving achievements for them, which will never happen. Yeah. That's never going to cross over. Nintendo's not doing that anytime soon. But they're talking about smartphones, and they have worked with some companies who typically are only geared towards smartphones.
Yeah, they've made that partnership with DNA last year sometime, I believe, so that's got to come into place somehow.
And the big fear was that this was going to be only a smartphone thing, but then they started talking about this working on your PC, and this also working on potentially PlayStation, no mention of Xbox yet, which doesn't surprise me. Japanese companies.
Yep, right. True.
And then what are the specs? Is it going to last in the future? Right?
Well, it's hard to say because the rumors right now are saying that it's only going to run at 900p at 60 frames per second.
Right.
PlayStation predominantly is running at 1080p almost in every one of their games. Xbox is hit or miss with from 1080p to 900p to sometimes 720p. 900p in this day and age is almost unacceptable to me.
It's also, to some degree, it's at least the standard. Like, if you're not going to be at that, you're not going to be competitive.
Now, on the flip side of that, resolution doesn't make or break a game for me. If it runs at 900p, my eyes aren't going to be able to be like, oh shit, that's not 1080p. This sucks now.
But potentially, 60 frames per second is going to smooth out that experience.
That's true.
That'd make a huge deal.
Yep.
There's also rumors that it's even 4K.
For the video streaming.
Right, for the video. Well, they're saying that there's rumors of 4K also at 60 frames per second, but that's streamed, which is huge. Right. I mean, that's going to take massive amounts of bandwidth to try and process that kind of data. So I'm not sure if my PlayStation could even handle streaming, 4K at 60 frames per second without, cooking itself.
Yeah. No, totally. And, some of the other rumors are, and this is probably one of the most important things they need to do, is a complete working version of backwards compatibility to some degree. Right now they've got, of course, the Virtual Console and the Wii U where they have a select few titles from past consoles. I'm talking the whole shebang. I want it all. Give me a way to play games, your entire library from NES to Wii U in one cohesive ecosystem. That's what I want.
Those are the things that we're attached to, right? Those are the franchises, those are the characters, those are the stories that we've been with now for almost 30 years. So if you give us the ability to hand that to the next generation and they can start at the beginning and then they can work their way up until the new moments, it's going to have more sales than we've ever seen in any video games console's history. Guaranteed. Yep.
This is a make or break moment for Nintendo. Fans are fairly kind of done with the company in a few regards. So Nintendo really has to come out swinging right now, or this can probably be the end of of the company.
Right.
And that's a very scary thought for those first party titles because we may not play Nintendo a whole lot in our personal lives, but we do love and care for Link and Zelda and Mario and Luigi and Bowser and the group of characters probably more than
everybody who's in Smash. Basically,
yeah, no, certainly.
Right. They are saying that this is going to potentially be sold in 2 pieces. And again, these are all rumors. It's all speculation. Yep. This is coming from different sources that are reporting it. But we have seen that they released a patent for a controller that looks very much like the Wii U's controller.
Yep.
If that's the case and it's sold in 2 separate pieces, possibly even at 2 separate times, maybe there's potential that that initial controller plays the games. But the second piece is more like PlayStation TV, for example, right? Maybe I could plug that into another device, and then I can play my Nintendo on my TV through my PlayStation, through other things. I don't know what it's going to be, because they're saying one is portable, the other one is a home. That's very similar to the Wii U currently, where I could continue to play my game in my hand, or I can watch it on the TV.
Right, but in your confined space.
Right.
I think they're taking it a step further, where take it on the bus, take it. innovating handheld like they did with the Game Boy back in
Right.
the 80s, they're innovating now again.
And the Advance and the DS
Yep.
and everything else and every other iteration that they've ever created of that has always had some kind of social element, and that's what the purpose of being portable was. It wasn't just being able to go outside and play. It was go outside and play with your friends.
Yep, most certainly. Because, they've seen huge success with the Nintendo DS and the 3DS and the 2DS, and there are different DS lines. Those have probably arguably been their most successful thing that they've
3DS
done.
Ultra, 3DS Super Turbo Edition.
Yeah. So it's interesting to think about where they're going to go with their mobile element.
Right, now I've got two different pieces of this, and they're also talking about different levels of subscription. I don't know what they're going to present to us as a base package. This could be very unique. Maybe it's, $199, and I get the ability to play, its current lineup. But maybe for a couple more dollars, I can play the past lineup.
Yeah. Ooh,
and then for a couple more dollars, I can get the current lineup on my PlayStation.
And maybe for a couple more dollars, you can get some of them nudie playing cards that they started with in the 1800s. What's up?
Bring them back.
Yeah. What do you guys think about the Nintendo, though? We've talked about, where they started, where they're going, where they're heading. Where do you want them to go?
Right. And, from my perspective, fans want it back. These are the same guys who were kids when this first came out with the NES.
Yep.
These guys have kids now, myself included. I want to share that experience. I want to share those characters in that universe, but they need to give us something that allows that capability, and I'm hoping that they're doing it this time.
Yep.
If not,
then adios, amigos.
rest in peace.
Yep.
Yeah.
But, tweet us your questions, answers. What do you guys think about it? Comment below. We'd love to engage in conversation. And you know what? Thanks for watching this particular episode of Zibble Spittle She's New.
You can contact us there and there. You can subscribe right there. Yep.
Oh, Timmy, it's been a pleasure.
Bye. I'm just going to go downstairs.